Yes, indeed. We're about to delve into very serious matters, but I hope you have a cup of tea at least. I was just complaining that mine wasn't here now. I was reminded that some people are fasting, and perhaps I should do this in solidarity with them. Well, you never can tell. We have with us this morning retired Brigadier General Sani Usman, who is a former army officer and also a former spokesperson of the Nigerian Army while he was there. General, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your program.
It's great to have you here. Well, we wish we had you here under a different set of circumstances and not the one that, we've invited you for. But the military has been on the forefront in recent times. A lot of questions around operations, a lot of questions around loyalty as well. Only a few days ago, it would seem that someone flew a kite. The military quickly came out to say, no, you're not even allowed to think about it. And that's talking about a coup d'etat. That it is mutinous and treasonable to even contemplate it. However, this morning, the federal government seems to be saying there ain't no smoke without fire. That's what we seem to be getting. What are your thoughts? I mean, when you just heard this briefly, what did you think about it?
Well, in the first place, I'm not surprised. And to answer your first question, the military being in the forefront is for obvious reasons, because of the, barrage of security challenges we have in the country. And the military has been deployed in almost 34 states against 36 states of the Federation. So it's more or less like the military is virtually almost everywhere. So it's understandable they are closer to society now, unlike before. So the concern or the interest in the military should be higher. Then the other aspect, when you have instance or convergence of the five key leadership category on certain issue, talking about the bureaucratic, the military elites, the bureaucratic elites, the military elites, and whether retired or serving, and of course the intellectual, the business, and the political elites, you tend to have some kind of conspiracy here and there. Therefore, the first warning by the military, I think, is quite in order. I could remember when I was Director of Army Public Relations, we have had instances like that. I could remember where, not even in the country with the Chief of Army Staff, I had to issue a statement, and a lot of questions were asked, but the essence of it actually was to even remind the military officers and safeguard them in case of any unforeseen circumstances. And we have had instances where careers were truncated based on political consideration. You remember the 2015 general elections, that involved some military officers were involved. And of course, our democracy has been a fledgling one, even though we are up to 21 years now practicing it, but they are concerned. Therefore, I think it is good that once in a while to remind people of their responsibilities and their loyalty to the Nigerian state, and to ensure that democratic governance thrive. More so, it is illegal, it is prohibited for anybody to contemplate taking over power in this country without recourse to the Constitution. And talking about the government, of course, naturally, it is good to also tell people, because they have access to more information than an ordinary Nigerian. Therefore, it is good that they should warn the mischief makers, people that are thinking, doing something untowards, about our democracy. But I think we should go beyond the issuance of press statements and press releases. If there were cogent, reasons about individuals that really want us to turn the hand of the clock in terms of democratic governance in Nigeria, I think they should be exposed. Our loads were quite clear about the line of action should be taken about them. And there is no need actually to overheat the polity. We have myriads of challenges, talking about socio-economic and security that I think all hands should be on deck to ensure that these challenges, are mitigated to a reasonable extent so that Nigeria can move forward.
But 34 states, I do recall that a few times I have spoken to you on this program, and even other programs, over the state of security and even military involvement in internal security affairs. Before now, perhaps it was 27 states. 27 states is still a lot, but now it's increased to 34. And still it would seem that the security challenges are not going down. For instance, Boko Haram is said to be in Niger State, and they've taken over a local government, for instance. And then we saw what has happened in Yobe, Maiduguri as well. There have been threats that Boko Haram could be regrouping, so to speak. And all of this just seems to be happening at the same time. Before you could quell one, another one is raising its head. What precisely is going on?
Well, I think there are issues. You can explain them in a variety of ways. First, explanation is the fact that I think there is concerted effort on the part of the military to decisively deal with the Boko Haram terrorists who are known to have been hibernating, the remnants of them at the, border edge of Borno State, particularly the northern side of it and, Lake Chad region and all the rest. The pressure is much, and we have had instances that there were reports that they are panning out. That is one. Secondly, this is something that has to do with ideology and belief system. So there were sleeper cells of them that could be reactivated, and this is what we are seeing. Then third and most important thing is the fact that over time we are yet to take holistic, overview of the security situation in the country. What I mean is that, look, the whole component of Nigerian society should be in tandem with the government in terms of counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism, operations going on. But sadly enough, the level of understanding is that it is the Nigerian army versus, the Boko Haram, or Nigerian military versus the Boko Haram, as against the Nigerian people versus the criminal element. So there are there's a kind of gap that ought to have been filled over time so that whenever they are doing things like that, I could remember even before the exercise Harbin Kunama in Zamfara State that time, there was information actually Boko Haram were moving towards Bauchi State, particularly in Lamebura Forest. And there was an operation to flush them out, and there was information that they might be, moving, northwest side of the country. So with that, there should be follow-up, and it is not just a military operation, just like what happened in 2009 with the Boko Haram. If you could remember, the military dealt decisively with the Boko Haram, when at its embryonic state. But unfortunately, there was no follow-up. And then, they went underground. And this is what we have been battling over the years, for over a decade now. So basically, these are some of the contributing factors. Then again, we have to look at every security challenge in the context of its environment. Let's take Zamfara State, for example. Yes, there were issues, particularly, when the banditry and the kidnapping issue started. Basically, it started in Ansado local government area, which is a border also local government with Kaduna State, the forest, and, it started with farmers clashes, but then there were retributive actions that eventually that make people to take arm and, Hausas versus Fulani, the Fulanis versus Hausa, and the vigilantes, what have you. And eventually, with the discovery of the mineral resources and illegal mining, the proliferations of arms, within the society, they help in heightening this. Then again, going back to the third reason I was talking about holistic, there is this issue of, disconnect between the people and the security architecture, in the sense that, people seems to have been left unattended to, in terms of, carrying them along. Because it is not just the military. There are other components of Nigerian society. And, talking about the elite leadership that I had made mention, that they ought to have been talking to themselves. Take, for instance, what is the relationship between, the security agencies and the traditional rulers and other stakeholders within the society? It could be, village community, organizations, youth groups, and what have you. So if there is that synergy of effort, bulk of the security challenges wouldn't have been, because we would have been talking to ourselves before the problem escalates to what it is now. It could have been nipped in the bud, or it could have been reduced to barest minimum. But luckily enough, now I think people are now rising. They are trying to understand the magnitude of the problem. That, look, the issue of terrorism and insurgency, banditry, you think it is just prevalent in the north or in the southwest. It has, effect on other parts of the Nigerian society and individuals, because, if one part of the society or Nigerian society is not safe and secure, it is as well as the Nigerian society is not safe and secure. So basically, these are some of the contributory factors to that. And unless we face it squarely, but thankfully, I think with the meetings and conversations going on, summoning here and there, I think we will get to that.
So I think that's a prayer every Nigerian has on their lips right now, that we'll eventually get to the solutions. But, we have to understand, as they will say, where the rain began to beat us. We do know that it was a short while ago when you retired, but while you were in service was when the military did make some progress against Boko Haram. From 2015, 2016, there was significant progress made, such that the federal government did say that they had defeated Boko Haram. Some people will say, given all that we currently see now, did we celebrate too early? And did we leave a lot of things undone, loose ends that we did not tidy up? And that's the reason why it will seem that there's now a spread, because there are huge questions as to what we did to counter the ideology which you have referred to of Boko Haram, because there are huge questions as to why is it that there is a resurgence now. Was it just a military operation and we left it at that? What did we do about the humanitarian crisis that sort of operation could have caused? Did we handle it in such a way that we created more converts to the cause of Boko Haram, or did we do what we ought to have done to make them see that they ought to be, people should be loyal to a larger Nigeria? There are huge questions here and there. But largely, do you think that we celebrated too early?
Well, I don't think so, because you see, the issue about fighting terrorism and insurgency has components. We discussed that some time back about kinetic and non-kinetic. And part of the non-kinetic aspect of it is the psychological aspect. And if I may go back to what you were referring to, maybe somewhere around December 2015 and early 2016 and all the rest of the thing, you remember the Boko Haram that time were still maintaining their caliphates, particularly with headquarters in Goza. And with due respect to the chairman, Senate Committee on Army, I think they took one of his properties as the residential accommodation of their head. But that is now history. But what brought about that is the fact that the Nigerian people tend to understand with the security agencies and took ownership. Because it wasn't magic. It wasn't magic. It's the kind of sincerity of purpose and determination to succeed, because it were the same group of soldiers that were used. And the procurement system takes such a long time. But when you psychologically ginger them up, take for instance, being with the troops, sharing their problems, making them to understand there is nobody that could solve Nigerian problems other than Nigerians themselves. And they are in the vanguard of doing so. And when you also at the same time make them understand, I could remember precisely going back, there was an attack in Balabulin, and where I had first encounter with the Boko Haram terrorists, and I was rudely shocked in the sense that this is someone that could not even afford a pair of bathroom slippers, because one right leg might be yellow bathroom slippers tied with something else and a rope, and the other one is blue. And this guy is standing firm, fighting. What more of you who have, at the back of you, the power of the state, your family, and the fact that you are saving humanity by engaging these bad guys. So automatically, if we have this sense of belonging, it will ginger the troops. Yesterday, I did not even sleep because I was reading one of the early editions of the papers. It looked, it's a story of about 500 or 600 words. There is nothing palatable about Nigerian state. Talking about this CGII, the Chandler governance, good governance indicators. There is no single positive words about Nigeria. In fact, if you go to the words used for some of the security agencies, you will weep. That kind of thing is demoralizing. And there is nobody that will come and solve our problem. Yes, you will talk about international communities they will have, but the solution lies here. And we need to build the resilience of the Nigerian people, the Nigerian military, by giving them sense of belonging and making them understand, look, we are solidly behind you. And of course, beyond that, we have to act in terms of equipment, welfare, and sound logistic and administrative arrangements so that they know what they are not wasting, their time. And, with that, you can see a turn around. And most importantly, again, these people are not spirits. They are within the society. Somebody somewhere, somehow is supplying them with some information, logistics, and what have you. So with that kind of, the holistic approach, the states, leading, people will understand that crime doesn't pay.
Well,
so
I don't know if that message is getting to people strong enough. Whether the people who are at the forefront, I don't think I did doubt that Nigerians support them. The question is whether the state has shown in words and action that it truly does in terms of the welfare, in terms of, I'm sure that, they will look to see what has happened to their fallen colleagues, our fallen heroes. And I'm sure that there's, more than enough examples to go around, especially since this war started, and how their families are faring. If they see that their families are faring well, I want to think that people would, naturally be gingered. But if that is not what is happening, that itself could be demoralizing to the troops on the front. Isn't that correct, General?
Yeah, it is correct. There's so many, gamut of so many things, including the recruitment system and the value system within the society. And that is where you guys come into play. When I mean guys, I'm talking about the media. Mm-hmm. It is not just enough to say there is corruption and all the rest. You have to really investigate and find out, yes, what is the statutory entitlement to a particular, soldier, airman, rating officer, or even any of the security agencies. What are the arrangements in case of unforeseen? Is it in terms of medical or educational, facilities, social welfare issues pertaining to themselves as individuals and, of course, their families? Because an average soldier has a family. He caters, in fact, in most cases, they are the breadwinners of the society. To what extent are you complementing that effort so that he will have a sense of belonging, that he doesn't need to think about, mundane things, about the welfare of his family. Yes, the love is only him that can give, but the state should show more care. The society should show more care. And that is why you should find out how much is the salary of a soldier and how much is the allowances, especially for those engaging these terrorists.
Well, you're here now. I can ask you.
Well, I have been out of the army. If you ask me how much is a pension, I will tell you, because I'm a pensioner. But
General, you're copping out. That's a cheap cop out.
No.
But I'll leave that alone. I'm not going to stress you on that, even though I could say at least what was the salary while you were there.
I will tell you.
Okay, what was the salary while you were there?
It was handsome enough to take care of me and my family.
No, that's you. What about the ordinary, the average
I wouldn't know, because
say a lance corporal, for instance.
I think a lance corporal does not earn as much as 100,000 in a month, including the allowances.
That's very worrisome.
And that is grossly inadequate, given the fact that he faces challenges. Somebody who is living by the minute, dying on behalf of the society.
That's very worrisome, because only
Exactly.
yesterday it was reported that a lance corporal was caught with about 2,000 rounds of ammunition trying to leave Borno State. He was caught at the park. I mean, vigilant citizens saw him at the park and reported him to the police. Now, I think if the army says they're still waiting for the police to hand him over to them, and the police refused to confirm that story, but it is confirmed that indeed a lance corporal was caught. They even have his picture with 2,000 rounds of ammunition. And this is coming right after, a soldier and his girlfriend were caught selling uniforms that belong to the Nigerian army. So there are huge questions. If we do not take care of the welfare of our, soldiers, and it's not sufficient, it's not like as if it will be sufficient for anyone's greed. But at least let it take care of the basics in such a way that, they're not looking for what to take care of their families. And when that doesn't happen, or if it's not sufficient, these are the kinds of things, or this sort of things shouldn't surprise us, or should they?
Well, yes and no. Why? Because I think in your report just a while ago, the chairman, Senate Committee on Army was talking about the military rationing ammunitions. So if that is the case, how do you explain somebody stealing as much as 2,000 rounds? Let's assume that a single round, let's assume it is for AK-47. And what is the clear range of AK-47? I think effective clear range, I think will be, up to, is it 300 to 400 meters so he knows that a single round of ammunition, if you have a good marksman, you keep an object or a human being about 300 to 400 meters, you will just kill that person or hit the person instantly. So you have 2,000 of that. How did he even steal it? But remember, this is just the one that has been caught. There were instances, some even flying, out of the theater. I could remember there were instances, some of them were caught, and in fact, they were telling me, look, just 1 or 2 rounds of ammunition, it could be a mistake, and of course, it could be a mistake. But there was a particular instance where somebody was saying that it was his friend that framed him up, but they later found out it is not true. So you go back to the issue of welfare and what have you, in the sense that there are issues of command responsibility. Because when you are a commander, you are responsible for all the resources available to you, including human and material resources. Take, for instance, in a battalion, what is the administrative mechanism, by the commanding officer? Agreed, you are living in a very tense and terrible situation. Everyday attack, everyday, defense, counter attacks and what have you. That it will be very difficult to, maintain those administrative mechanisms. But there should be checks, periodic, to ensure those with criminal tendencies within the system do not take undue advantage of it.
General, but people will say we have been appropriating money to the military. Even right now we're reading, and this is coming from the defense minister, that, we have overfunded Operation Lafia Dole. We do know that there are huge questions around accountability now as we speak, as to whether or not the monies that were approved actually went into doing what it is that they ought to have done. Yes, indeed, they're trying to get more money into the military and get more money to buy arms and ammunition. And, you know, I mean, you just made reference to the fact that the Chairman Senate Committee on Army says that they're rationing arms within the military. Are we ensuring that there is true accountability within the rank and file of the military?
Well, I have just made mention of that, the issue of administrative mechanism and what have you. And in as far as much I know there is. But again, for people at the helms of affairs to come out and start talking, I mean, I think it's the relegation of responsibility. Why? Because any time there is appropriation, there are extant roles in terms of M&E, monitoring and evaluation. You know, you have key performance indicators. How you appropriated 1 billion naira, for instance. What is it meant for? Before you even appropriated, there was a request for that 1 billion naira. So it is your duty and responsibility to ensure that actually that money that is appropriated for is meant, I mean, is used judiciously for that particular purpose. And you don't have to wait. You could have been requesting for periodic reports and, you know, inspections and what have you. But we tend to neglect till when problems comes up, then we start talking. But then, come to think of it, how much is the total percentage of the budgetary allocations that is given to security sector in this country, given the fact that we are fighting so many fronts, you know, dealing with security challenges. And I believe it is not even up to 1%. And if you go back to when we had the Civil War, what was the appropriation? These are the issues that you have to take into consideration also.
Well, let's take a break at this moment. We'll come back and continue the conversation. Please, don't go away. Well, retired Brigadier General Sani Usman, a former army officer, is still with us in the studio. I don't know why I have to say a former army officer. Do they ever retire? Well, now, because we're being told, I think the Senate is saying, do call back all retired military men for them to come and, you know, serve in this battle. You're smiling. Is it out of place to say that?
Well, I think there is even constitutional provision for a reserve. It's just that we have not been too serious about it, so it's not surprising. And of course, there is also issue of the barmen.
Are we serious about anything? Because
yes.
how can we have such a battle on our hands? I mean, you just said it, we have a barrage of battles, and we're not serious about, you know, a reserve.
No, but honestly, we cannot look. All these security challenges, they are not unsurmountable if we are serious enough. We have more than enough to do that. All we have to do is keep on improving and enhancing. One of the greatest assets of this country is the human resources. Have we effectively been using it optimally? Applying it. No, we have not. And, you know, look, all you have to do is to, you know, nudge Nigerians towards the right direction, and you'll see wonders. And that is why when they get out of this environment, you will see them, they perform excellently.
Who should do the nudging? There's a question.
Well, naturally, we have a government should take the lead. Then, of course, I told you about the, you know, type of leadership in any given society, the elites. Be it the business, or the bureaucratic, or the military, but most importantly, it is the political elites, because they, you know, tend to harmonize all and give the desired leadership. Over time, have they been doing that? And that is what is bringing us to all this quagmire we are into now.
General, but the problems are a lot. I mean, for the everyday, ordinary Nigerian who is feeling rather unsure. I'm sure even you, when you want to take a trip to Kaduna, for instance, now, you know, you would definitely put some measures in place. You can't just wake up and take a trip, can you? So it is very worrisome right now. The people who are, crying, who have been crying now for a while. Yesterday we saw the parents of those whose children have been kidnapped
the Greenfield.
at the National Assembly. The Greenfield University students, I think about 17 of them are still in captivity. Africa students were kidnapped way before the Greenfield students, and we still haven't seen them being freed. And we have security agents. There are huge questions as to, the capacity of our security agents. General, what insights can you provide into why it is that we're yet to be able to free the students?
Well, it is not just the student. If you go back since 2014, the Chibok schoolgirls, some of them are still with the Boko Haram terrorists. So it is not just that. And I'm not too sure those school children in Kagara have been released also, have been released. So there are so many of them. And you made reference
Kagara is in Niger State. They were freed.
Okay, they were freed, sorry.
They were released.
Okay. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that you have already made mention of very, very vital issue, which is the capacity. And now, in this modern day and era, I think we have not been making use of science, technology, and innovation in terms of dealing with security challenges. Take, for instance, the kidnapping. The kidnapper make use of technology. And what is the technology? The social media technology or telecommunication, take for instance, because the negotiation for ransom and what have you is done via, mobile telephone. So, what are you doing about that? Whose responsibility is it to monitor and track? To what extent have we invested, particularly in those security agencies equipping and responsible for that aspect of it? Because there is a limit to which the military, even if you deploy them, can do. And they work on timely and accurate intelligence. Are we equipping the intelligence services? Are we making sure that they are doing the right thing? These are issues, and they are very, very important. And to what extent are we coordinating the whole security architecture? Right from the intelligence that get the information, pass the information. Whose responsibility is it to be, to deploy and to deal with these issues? So these are the issues.
General, let me shock you. So recently I had a conversation with an investigative journalist who told me about a kidnapping incident he was involved in. And he said that they were able to they employed the, what they call that now, they employed the services of a private investigator who came into the matter. They were able to track. They knew precisely where these kidnappers were. They knew when they went to buy food in town. They knew when they came back into the forest. They knew their movement at every single point. But there was no will on the part of any of the security agents that they spoke to be able to attack these people. What is going on in terms of the will? Sometimes some people will say, oh, it's because we don't have the technology. But even where private citizens were willing to provide the technology or even get help, so to speak, why is it so difficult for us to be able to deploy, men and personnel and resources to be able to get people out of the hands of kidnappers?
Well, first and foremost, I think the issue of lack of will you're talking about, the security agencies, particularly I know the military, they don't deploy themselves. So they act on order. Now, if there are security, and I don't believe, because we have had instances, even at my own level, just last week, there was information I received from somewhere in Katsina State. Bandits were gathering for the first time. They have not seen such a number, and there is every likelihood they will attack a particular village in Katsina State. Of course, the little I have, given the contact, I sent the information to the various, relevant security agencies, I can rest assure you there was a positive response in the sense that they were able to apprehend them. And of course, those security agencies, even though I'm an individual, they were responsive enough to even tell me that, look, action has been taken. So that is reassuring. And this is the issue, that we have not sufficiently educated Nigerians about, the intricacies of security, what to do, whom to report at which time. Sometimes you will see things on social media and a policeman will tell you that he doesn't act on social media. And those people that are posting on social media, they have access also to, contact persons, maybe either in the police or Department of State Service, the military, and what have you. So we should know which problem is for which channel of communication. That is one aspect. And the other thing is the fact that the security agencies should be responsive enough to anticipate things, because each and every one of them is deployed, given particular area of operational responsibility. So they should start anticipating issues, problems, and if they come up, they should respond appropriately.
So
and
the
if there
people
is
who
need,
have been crying about their children at, being in the forest for how long now, who should they be directing their complaints to? Naturally,
the primary responsibility of the state is to secure the citizens and enhance the welfare of the citizens. So naturally, the responsibility lies with the government. But you can say which of the tier of the government or which aspect of the government. But this time around, when human lives are involved, I think we should not stop at just government. We should do everything humanly possible to ensure that these guys are, released. I won't say maybe, let's say rescued and, harmlessly. So it behoves on every one of us.
Let's quickly take this to Lagos now. I'm sure my colleagues have questions for you.
Well, yes, indeed, General. I mean, some of the things you've said, it raises questions as to these funds that have been allocated for this purpose. Are they actually getting to the source? And these are huge questions, and one wonders, how long will all of these keep going? Because if you don't address those concerns, no matter how much funds are allocated, it means the same things could happen again. But all of these actions makes one question almost any and everything. For instance, I know you've been to NIPS, and some of these leaders who are supposed to take some of these actions have equally attended courses in NIPS as well. But is NIPS really that relevant? Because if they have, and we're still where we are, shouldn't we be questioning the relevance of such agencies?
I don't think we should, not because I'm a proud alumnus of the National Institute, but for the simple fact that I think we have been through this road before. What I mean by being through this road before is lack of political will. Take, for instance, this issue of slashing salaries of, public servant or civil servant, to speak. Somebody reminded me that one of the courses at the National Institute really trash this issue. All you have to do is to go back and check their report that they presented to the presidential party. And I know, for instance, in my own case, in 2018, in November, we submitted a report that has to do with strengthening the internal security framework and community policing in this country. We came up with policy options and implementation strategy. And it is by the grace of God that the community policing issue was given the needed nudge. So, but beyond that, there are other issues that cut across defense and security, healthcare, economy, what have you. The reports are there. And thankfully, this year, I think the 43rd course of the National National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, they said, look, we will no longer give you anything anymore. We are going to dust all those reports that have been, been given to the federal government over the last 40 years, let's see how we can revisit them. Even though times and circumstances have changed, we are in the 21st century, but that notwithstanding, they are still relevant. They are still relevant, that we can, take advantage of and, use them. So the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies is more than relevant, and it is not just that. There are other think tanks and other institutions. Take, for instance, the National Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolutions, and of course the Nigerian Army Resource Center. Every week, I know for the Nigerian Army Resource Center, Mondays and Fridays, they interrogate key issues, and after interrogation, discussion, and all the rest, they propose solutions, and various ministries, departments, and agencies, and other government agencies, in fact, even private organizations, they tend to, send reports to them. It's left for them to implement or to adjust accordingly. So that is the problem we are having. So if we can have the will to take advantage of these resources available to us whenever they come out with findings and researches, we have to take them seriously. And more so for the National Institute, you don't stop at recommendations. You have to prepare implementation strategies to the point that who should do what and who should even give what resources. So basically, if we are doing that, I don't think we will be into this issue of allegations of corruptions and misappropriations of funds or funds not getting to the right person, because already you have established, ways of doing that. And what remains is for those people in authorities, whose responsibility is it to ensure that there is effective monitoring and evaluation using key performance indicators.
Some weeks ago, General Abdulsalam Abubakar raised the alarm that they have about 6 million, if I remember properly, illegal weapons circulating in the country. And he said they've been responsible for about 80,000 deaths. Now we heard recently that the government did set up this National Center for the Control of Small and Light Weapons, which is going to replace the Presidential Committee on that small and light weapons. And perhaps they say this forms or is part of their efforts to reorganize security agencies in the country. What kind of impact do you think that decision will have? Because it's going to be domiciled in the Office of the National Security Advisor, ONSA.
I think that thing is a welcome development. As a matter of fact, it's long overdue. Because 3, 4 or more years ago, there was a move to ensure that it has been established. But thankfully, it has been established. And we have to commend the government for establishing it, because bulk of the security challenges that we're having were further aggravated by the proliferation of, small, light, and medium weapons in circulation illegally within the Nigerian society. Quite right, General Abdulsalam's committee saying 6 million, the number could even be more. And saying over 80, of course it is a fact, because bulk of the deaths, except for road accidents and maybe strangulations, as was the case of that unfortunate incident of that 5-year-old in Kaduna and other parts, basically the deaths were through weapons. So, and most of these weapons were illegally acquired. But I must say, even though the general has all it takes, Major General Abba Mohammed Dukko retired. I know him personally, and he has all it takes to do all that needs to be done to ensure that the proliferation of small and medium arms within the society is reduced to the barest minimum. But I must say that he has a lot of work to do. Why? Because first and foremost, we have to look at what are those things that we have on the ground. What was the legacy of that committee that he will build on? And my greatest worry, actually, is the fact that it is now domiciled in the Office of the National Security Advisor. I have the opinion that it should be independent, because there is so much to be done, in the sense that apart from, mopping up it is not just question of control. Apart from mopping up, they should be able to stop, the importation or illegal importations of these small and medium arms, and they should also be able to deal with the issue of the proliferations of fabricated weapons, which they are very, very dangerous within the society. And the fact that there are so many sources of these weapons into the society, the porous borders, the Sahel region, of course, we know the conflicts in Libya, and of course, the Gulf of Guinea. What do we have in the Niger Delta? And just yesterday, a soldier was caught with 2,000 rounds of ammunition. So even the security agencies, they need to be interrogated. But the good advantage of domiciling it in the Office of the National Assembly, the Office of the National Security Advisor, is the fact that he will have access to, information and intelligence and synergy within the security services as against when it is independent. But I think it should be, an independent establishment. More so, it is going to have regional offices in the 6 geopolitical zones, and given the bureaucratic nature of government, the reporting system and what have you, to some extent will kind of hamper, quick action, to speak, by the center. But I think it's good. And again, there is one other aspect that he has to be dealing with extra, ministerial departments. Take, for instance, there is no way you will succeed if you do not take into, our neighboring countries into this. More so, I know that the United Nations has a protocol, the African Union has, and I believe ECOWAS has one. So, but we need to harmonize that, and that is why the center has to be reaching out. And if you are just a director or coordinator in the Office of the National Security Advisor, how will you be dealing with other states? Take, for instance, Benin Republic, Republic of Cameroon, Niger, and Chad. And possibly then, of course, the issue of the Gulf of Guinea. So I think it should be expanded. It should be given an independent autonomy so that it can perform optimally.
Well, perhaps that's why the Senate last year, February, made a move to establish the National Commission Against the Proliferation of Arms and Light Weapons. That's commission scale second reading as at February last year, before the full weight of COVID-19 really hit us. But you see, the issues that you have, a few times you have mentioned the need for security agencies to work together and all of that. So in the light of what you said about the, weapons and all of that, the control of bringing them into the country, it's quite worrisome. And you are correct to say that it's more than 6 million small arms proliferated all over the nation, because according to a 2016 UN report, an estimated 70% of the 500 million weapons circulating in West Africa are domiciled in Nigeria. You mentioned that just a couple of days ago, a soldier was said to be caught with some arms. You talked about the Niger Delta, 2016 or thereabout, Rivers State, a large cache of arms and ammunition were collected from, some non-state actors. But then you see, it's the importation of those arms that worry me. In the light of establishing this center, what then would be the functions, or what questions should we be asking the other security agencies in the entire spectrum? The Immigration Service is there to make sure that some of these things don't come in. The Customs Service is there to make sure that some of these things do not come in. Clearly, from what we're seeing, it seems that they haven't been doing their jobs. So what would be the function of this center that is being proposed by the NSA as against the functions of these other, lines of security agencies that are supposed to be performing the same functions?
Well, I think I wouldn't say they are not doing their job. They are doing it in the best way they know how. But we have a system in this country. Take, for instance, if you are even talking about Nigerian Customs Service, we tend to neglect the security aspect of their responsibility to and highlight the revenue generating aspect, and hence the custom is under the Ministry of Finance as against being under Interior or police or what have you. The same thing with Nigerian Immigration Services. I think we should emphasize beyond the movement of the people, we should also be concerned about proliferations of arms, this individual, because these arms, they are not having the legs of their own. People bring them in. And we have to also look at to what extent this ECOWAS protocol of free movement, and I could remember precisely, Ghana had a serious problem, somebody has been trafficking arms illegally because of the ECOWAS protocol. He will go into the country with a vehicle empty, seemingly coming out empty, and it takes the kind of curiosity of a particular custom officer. He said, look, and they realized that actually the vehicle had been articulated in between the tires and the body. They have articulated where he, smuggled in arms and ammunition out of Ghana. And so these are issues that you have to take into consideration. But again, the center will build on the existing legacy or resources available. And naturally, take for instance, there are instances where some of the security agencies, when they are carrying out operations, if they need the services of other security agencies. That is why you hear of joint operations. Sometimes the Civil Defense, Nigerian Police, and the Department of Security, State Service, as well as the Nigerian military, particularly the Nigerian Army. So I expect the center to take advantage of that. Take for instance, the center cannot just go and start mopping up arms. Based on information available, definitely before they move in, they need, if not for anything, security cover. And, somebody who is dealing with arms, definitely he or she is a dangerous person. You just cannot approach him. So you need to also secure yourself. So you see where the synergy of effort will come into play. And most importantly, again, beyond all these things, and that is why there are issues beyond what we are seeing. There is a war economy in which, in fact, the arm manufacturers themselves are making a lot of money out of the sales of these arms and ammunition, and they will not relent. Then, again, there are other people that also benefit, the middlemen that, purchase. Sometimes they even hire out this arms ammunition. We have had instances, somebody who is even a foreigner in a village in Katsina State that hired out guns, including general purpose machine gun. So you have to sort out all these people, and you just cannot go empty-handed. You need the services of the police. You need the services of the State Department, Security, State Services Department, as well as the Nigerian military. So basically, I don't see them working alone. And if they want to succeed, or if they are to succeed, definitely they have to work in tandem with other security agencies. And most importantly, the government itself has to conscientize the Nigerian society. They should understand there are better ways of resolving, conflicts than resorting to arms. So with that, we will have willing people to come up, voluntarily, even, laying down their arms.
General, it's a fine place to leave it, even though we would really have loved to dwell a bit more on the war economy, because people have said when conflict starts, it's very difficult for it to finish, especially when people are profiting from it. But we have to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts as candidly as you possibly could this morning on Sunrise Daily. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. And I must say that you drank tea while I'm doing fasting, so you owe me something.
Indeed, I do. I've been speaking to retired Brigadier General Sani Usman, who is a former Army officer. Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please stay with us.